It's a unique situation, and Ian and Heather were unique buyers and unique sellers. So I thought we should tell the story and put something down so that way it can be shared, down the road with people. So that kind of experience, not only working with us, but just the experience of the process. Ian initially came to us and Heather to possibly sell their business, which was a very large scale catering and events company. What happened is, through that conversation, the idea was, I don't want to give up this business and the cash flow that it generates for my family prior to having something else in place. Knowing how long it takes to find a business, and it's just difficult finding the right fit, we kind of thought this is impossible. Like, you're not going to find a business prior to selling yours. However, through that conversation, I remembered a business that sort of fit the criteria that Ian was looking for. I remembered a business that I met with that we decided not to move forward with from a listing and selling standpoint, but it seemed to check all the boxes and just happened to be a mile or two away from where Ian lived in his other business. So we sort of put together a meeting, met with the owner, and then 3, 4, 5 months down the road, actually ended up closing that business for Ian. And then once that one was closed, we were able to put his business on the market. Already had essentially a buyer in waiting who'd been looking at other opportunities through us. We had somebody to bring to the table right away, ended up working out, got them through their financing process, and had a successful close there. So within literally just less than maybe 6, 7 months, soup to nuts, Ian acquired a company, then sold a company. That's pretty much the background story about it. And I think maybe you can describe kind of what you were looking for initially and if this business sort of checked all the boxes. Let's start with that, then we'll sort of continue with some questions.
I think one of the important things that you have to establish yourself as a buyer is having your criteria. You can't just be, looking like a broad stroke over every business and consider it as an option. My criteria, as you mentioned, I was trying to exit food service. I was exiting, the schedule. I was exiting the type of materials I'm working with, perishable. I'm exiting the type of employees you attract to that industry. And then also in doing so, I knew that I had a criteria, like I wanted to be close to home. I didn't want to say buy a business where there's a good commute or, I took everything into consideration is what I'm saying. In addition to financials, a lot of times when you're looking for a business, maybe financials is the shiny object that you focus on. And that can't be the only point of criteria that you can focus on because there's a lot more to it. My criteria, in the end was 1, the hours, 2, the financials, and 3, more of just the stability of the business type. Here I see a great business that I bought, but also a lot of low-hanging fruit for areas of opportunity of improvement. So like me working on those projects gives me a lot of satisfaction.
You did have the same kind of mindset, the same sort of goal at the end was finishing the job and closing the deal and agree and sticking with what you agreed to, having integrity through the process, which is really important. Is there anything throughout that surprised you that you weren't expecting, that maybe rattled you or didn't rattle you, that you just sort of kept to yourself and you knew the big picture was going to be there for you and you're going to get through it?
Yeah, I think throughout the process, I had to be strict with myself about managing my expectations. There's times when I'm like, wow, this is going really smooth. And there's times when I'm like, wow, I feel like I've sent this document to, this lender, or, I've requested this at like already 3, 4 times I'm not getting. So you have to have patience at the same time. I knew what I wanted and I knew I wasn't going to let it like slip through my fingers. I put pressure on myself to execute on every front. And I knew I couldn't take my foot off the gas. Like I had to like keep pushing forward. For like the buy side, it's like, it's not just, oh, I have the money and the skill set. It's not just that. Like you can't just say like, this is a slam dunk. And I never like thought like, oh, this is a done deal. Until I got the keys, it's not a done deal.
It's so not done until it's done. I would say as far as a picture perfect transaction, there never is one. But when you can get the buyer and seller both working towards the common goal and actually getting the transaction done, it goes so much smoother.
In my opinion, if everything's a deal breaker, then you're just not committed to the process. If you're talking about pennies or, even a few $1,000s when you're talking about a multi-million-dollar transaction, I think you have to look more long-term. My relationship building strategy with the seller, Mark, was to not make him feel like I'm against him, but more it was like a team effort. I think you have to see like just big pictures. Like if you like a business, it's going to be successful and you can make a positive impact, then have a good working relationship with all parties. There's no reason to beat anyone up over like small things. My only fear was, is somehow this going to fall apart and then we can't make the deal happen? So me being easy to work with was a strategy. If I'm easy, they're going to be easier. And I felt like the more I gave to the process, the more Mark gave. After I bought the business, there's no complaints coming out of my mouth, because you're always going to discover something that you don't like. I didn't think this was going to happen, or I didn't know this was a situation. Like, you got to be a true professional and say, I bought this, I'm going to stand by it. And if there's something to change, well, that's what I'm here for. If I bought a perfect business, there'd be no opportunity for growth. I mean, it's not just the relationship between, the buyer and the seller and who's in between it. It's the rest of the team. So like, I felt confident, not because of my skill set to do different, but like I had a second set of eyes looking over everything. Even, the contract that you provided me and you're on my side is, hey, the lawyer's still going to review it, and redline it. And so that we all feel good. And I knew that at some point, if this thing fell through, I'm just out thousands of dollars I spent on legal fees for nothing. So I already made an investment before I made an investment in it. So you have to have that right team as well.
So we got to one where you were like, yeah, I was buying this business focused on the future. And now you had to, more or less look at the past a little bit and say, okay, this is my baby. This is what we built. This is what, our kids were here helping out, raising our family, building this company. And now I have to deal with emotions of exiting it. Did that come into play, or did it help that you already had Lazar's to focus on and something else where you didn't really have to put a lot of real thought into that?
I think having already acquired the business that I'm going to have a future with definitely made it less stressful. Not everyone might be able to have that seamless type transaction. But as far as the emotions tied to my former business, I had the foresight when I founded it not to have my name on anything, because I always knew I was going to sell it at some point. So that was a very contrived strategy from, 2011. I also knew in preparation for the sale, I did things to prepare for it over the course of a few years. I improved what my tax returns looked like. I started to put the package together year over year for a few years. I didn't, present a business that was, well, we're losing this much on paper, but in reality, we're making this much.
Yeah.
I wanted to have it strong on that side. And so going into it, emotionally, I felt really good about selling. I never felt like I was duping anyone or selling a business that wasn't really worth what I was asking for. I think it was actually worth a little more, but I wanted to have a quick sale. I think once I got into the selling frame of mind, the emotion of letting it go was not painful for me. I wanted to treat it like an entity instead of a passion.
Maybe you can share your story a little bit about challenges that we were able to solve for you in either one of the transactions. If you can think of anything that maybe.
Well, if I even back up a little more,
Yeah.
When I did make the decision to list my previous business,
Yep.
you guys were the first ones I called. There was a list that I compiled. So I had this naturally good, internal feeling about going with you guys. So, that's a compliment to, you and Michael and your group. I felt like there was times on calls with other brokers and I felt like I was trying to be sold. I don't like being sold. I see through that very quickly and I get put off on it. I also felt that you and Michael were very confident and experienced, which was very impactful. You didn't need me. You weren't the person that had no deals in play. It's not like you always want the business, but you don't need the business. So I want to work with people that it's more of, they can be a little more choosy, because then if they choose to work with me, that's because they see the value of what I bring. So I would say for sellers, don't go with the biggest or necessarily someone else's referral. Someone might have a great experience with a broker and then you could have a totally different experience. So I felt like you guys had integrity, which made me feel good. It wasn't like I felt like anyone was getting frustrated with me or my questions were insignificant or that you guys weren't going to perform. After our first meeting with Michael, and then you're like, Michael already has the marketing packet done. Like, he was so on top of that aspect. And whenever I had a referral, request. Like, you're like, I have a guy, I have this lawyer, I have this person, this lady can do this. It wasn't like I was like, well, that's not really what I do. I never heard that from you guys. It wasn't, that's not my job, or that's not the role we play, or that's what I don't like hearing. You know what I mean? It's a team effort. You guys performed as well, which was a good experience.
The message that I always try to send to people is that transactions are not easy, whether it's a seller or a buyer, whether you're trying to buy a business or sell a business. There's going to be a lot of things we go through throughout that process, and be prepared for it. A lot of the stuff you'll see in social media talks about how easy it is. There's baby boomers retiring every day. Their businesses are like, they're giving them away for free with no money down. They're ready to hand them to you. Like, we know that's not true, number one, but we also know how hard it is to go through this process. So yeah, we try to be a support system, always think big picture, always try to help, guide you, through it, but also not make promises that we can't keep. But finding the right buyer isn't the hard part from our perspective. I mean, we've been doing this a long time. We have plenty of people that are looking for deals. It's about managing two emotional parties through a tough, difficult, challenging, long process. And once you can master that, you've essentially mastered our business in general. It's managing people, managing humans. So I appreciate you saying that, because that's how we try to do it. We don't need every listing. We don't need every business, right? We're going to survive. Our train's not stopping, but we want to help people like you and get people on this train, because we know what it's all about. We know what selling your business and the emotions that are there and finding the right deal and how it can make or break. And appreciate, the kind words, because it is a challenge and we're up to it. What were the key factors that led to the success of the deal? I would say of your deal, the sale of your business.
You got to be prepared. You can't wake up one day and just say, I'm going to sell my business. I didn't wake up one day and say, I'm just going to sell this as is, take it or leave it. It was years of preparation, getting financials in order, tax returns in order, building clientele, separating myself from the business over the last couple of years, and letting the employees kind of run it more and be the face of it more, not trying to have ego involved on my behalf, but saying like, well, hey, I'm the owner, I'm this or that. I wanted to step away as much to allow for more infrastructure to be developed. And so that when I stepped out, it wasn't like, you are the business. You can't be the business. You can't sell a job. So preparation. And then once you commit to selling, you got to stay committed. I mean, you can't say, well, I'll just pull out a deal if I don't feel good about it, or I'm not ready this month, or that puts a bad taste in everyone's mouth, including your broker or the lender or anyone. So they're not going to work with you. And then you have to be able to execute. You can have great ideas, great intentions, but unless you execute, it means nothing. So throughout the whole process, and I think we kind of proved that to you, we were all about execution. You need a document within minutes. If you needed an answer to a question, we were there. We were transparent, we were on top of it. We treated it like it was a second full-time job, not a part-time job selling the business or buying the business. So it has to be, it's more effort to do that, because you got to run your business and then have another full-time job selling it and keep it confidential, So you got to manage a lot.